When it comes to receiving corrections, whether it's on a written assignment or verbally when you're speaking another language with somebody, whether it is solicited or not, I've noticed there are two types of people out there. There are people who welcome corrections with open arms, and they will say, please correct me, I really want to progress in my studies and I want to be corrected for that reason. And they are totally 100% serious when they say that, and they really are able to take any corrections that are given to them, and they really do like to be corrected. And then there are others who I can relate to a bit more who are like, yeah, please give me corrections. And those are the people where we do want to learn and grow, but we might be feeling a little bit more sensitive or a little bit more self-conscious. And this can really depend, and we'll get into that a little bit. But in reality, when it comes to corrections, corrections are necessary to progress in your language studies. When done in a respectful way and while using discernment, it can actually help you to learn from the correction that you're given, to grow in what you're able to say or write or how to communicate in general, and it can also help you to move forward in your studies and move a little bit closer to whatever your goal is, your next goal, or maybe the bigger picture that you have in mind. Now, if corrections are bothering you and you're not feeling as open to feedback or corrections as you would like to be, then ask yourself what is getting in the way. You can start off by asking yourself this question. Is this something that you've been corrected on before? If not, well then, the answer is actually simple to that. You're not going to remember everything that you've just learned, especially if it's fresh in your mind. You haven't had time to build up that memory yet or to be using it all that much, so it's natural that you'll make a mistake and maybe receive a correction here and there. No reason to beat yourself up over that. Totally natural when you're just learning. But yes, if you have received corrections on this area before, whether it's the way you're pronouncing something or grammar or a choice of word that you use, why does it bother you? It's important to get to the root of that why, and it will require some digging. For instance, do you feel sensitive? Because sometimes we think that corrections are a direct reflection of ourselves. We tend to take them personally. And maybe you think, well, I'm a bad language learner, and you make this about you, even though the correction really doesn't have anything to do with you per se, or your work ethic, or your study habits, any of that. You just take it personally, but in reality, it's not meant to be that way. Most people, when they're giving a correction, they're not doing it to make you feel bad about yourself. They're just trying to help you out, and it's important to keep that in mind if you are a particularly sensitive person. It's not part of your identity. It's not a direct reflection of you as a human being or as a language learner. Another thing that you can do is dig even deeper. So let's look at one situation. Maybe you were corrected on something and you realize that it bothers you because you're feeling insecure about yourself. Kind of going back to that sensitive example where you take it personally. You're feeling insecure. Keep questioning yourself like a child who keeps asking why all the time and wants to know the deeper answer and wants a concrete answer. Keep asking yourself why. Why do you feel insecure? Perhaps that insecurity stems from perfectionism, wanting to do everything perfectly, wanting it to be completely correct, and that one mistake undermined that idea of being perfect. And then ask yourself, why do I want to be perfect? Why do I want the way that I speak or write or read this language to be perfect? Why is that? And dig deeper. This requires getting honest with yourself. You might not like the answer to it. Maybe you have this sense of perfectionism because there's some pride behind it. And you want to be the perfect language learner. You want to get the perfect grade, or maybe you're not even being graded, but you have that mentality in your mind and you kind of stake who you are as a language learner on whether you communicate perfectly and that would be your definition of success, versus if you receive a mistake, it means that it wasn't, or not receive a mistake, receive a correction because of a mistake that you made, then it means you're not perfect. But keep in mind this as well. As a native speaker, you're going to make mistakes in your own native language because native speakers are not perfect speakers. For instance, I say things wrong. Now, at times, I could pronounce things wrong, I could spell things wrong, I need to look up words occasionally. And it's important to remember how you react as a native speaker. Do you react similarly when somebody corrects you in your native language? For instance, if somebody says that I pronounce something wrong, I'll usually laugh about it. I'll usually giggle because I'll think, wow, I didn't even think of that. That sounded so silly, but I don't take it as I'm not a good English speaker. I don't speak English well. I don't think anything about that. I don't evaluate it on any kind of scale because it's my native language. So why should you be judging yourself that harshly in a language that you're learning, if you're not even doing that in your native language? Finally, if you want to start opening yourself up to feedback and corrections, but you're not ready to completely put yourself out there yet, whether that is online or in a classroom necessarily, this actually is a tip that I got from Denai Fleur's talk on embracing shyness in language learning, and that is to find safe spaces to use your language. You can do this slowly. You don't have to jump in all at once. You can find a teacher that you feel doesn't overcorrect you and does it in a respectful way. They discern whether that is a correction that they feel you can benefit from, or if it's something that they can let slide because it wasn't a consistent correction and they don't need to correct every little thing and nitpick. Also, talk to a friend or a trusted family member or anyone, a trusted person that speaks that language natively that can help you, but that is going to be patient and kind to you and isn't just going to correct you, because there are people out there who do want to ruin your day, and their feedback isn't always helpful. Not every piece of feedback that you get is going to be helpful for your learning, and sometimes people do want to do harm to other people online and just ruin their day. And if you want to start off with putting yourself out there slowly, but as I said, not completely jump into things, then I would recommend finding that safe space that Denai talks about in her Women in Language talk that she presented a couple of weeks ago. And finally, it's important to know that even though you can't stop people from giving you feedback or from correcting you per se, sometimes people are just going to do it if you try to say something at a restaurant and order food, or even in class, which that's more of an environment where you most likely will be corrected. But whether it's in an environment where you're more likely to be corrected or one where you just want to have this low pressure atmosphere to try to practice your target language, you can't stop people from correcting you, but you ultimately have control over how you react to those corrections. And it's important to evaluate where that person might be coming from, and if they're not coming from a place of kindness and really wanting to help, and you think that they're doing this to be hurtful, then it's important to remember that and keep that in mind and take what they say with a grain of salt, even though that is way easier said than done. That's all I have for you this week. I'd like to know, how are you with taking corrections? Do you relate more to the people who are open to taking corrections? Or are you more on the side of you want that, but you don't know how to put yourself out there, and you do get a little bit worried, and every time you receive a correction, it kind of hurts a little bit? What side are you on? Or would you say you're somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye!